Good evening, my fellow crime addicts. Well, tonight we're going to read through this underground bunker, the leaked document, how Scientology plotted to destroy Bruce Hines. Then I have all of those documents that we're going to prove what they do, and we're just going to use Bruce Hines as an example. So let's look at this. Here's a picture of our lovely Bruce Hines. In court documents, Scientology attorneys invariably do their best to describe the church as an embattled victim of bigotry, an organization dedicated to spiritual matters and social betterment that is under attack from former members and the press. Scientology's internal documents paint a different picture, as Leah Remini and Mike Rinder, rest in peace, Mike Rinder, have tried to explain to courts and judges. Scientology is a ruthless organization with an entire secret service dedicated to investigating and retaliating against a whole host of perceived enemies, including former members who dare to speak out. Scientology is anything but a passive organization. We have another new example of this for you today, a document that takes us right into the dark heart of Scientology's retaliatory schemes. At the time it was written, two defectors were making Scientology very nervous about what they might tell the world. Bruce Hines had been a major auditor who had counseled a large number of important Scientologists, including Nicole Kidman, where she was married to Tom Cruise, and Mary Sue Hubbard, the wife of the founder, L. Ron Hubbard. Scientology was panicked about what Hines might reveal that he had learned in confidential sessions with these figures. And after leaving the church, Bruce had begun to give press interviews. Meanwhile, Karen Pressley had left the church after helping to run the Hollywood Celebrity Center, and she had an enormous amount of information about Scientology's famous members. In a document dated January 14th, 2006, Scientology's Office of Special Affairs have described one plan to scare Hines and Pressley out of saying anything else, namely to have two of Scientology's lackey lawyers, Gary Soder and Kendrick Moxon, where do we know those names, send threatening letters and plan to sue Bruce. I left the Sea Org in New York City in April 2003, Bruce said when we asked him for how things had gotten to this point. Gradually, not right away, I started reading about Scientology on the internet. I read some things by Chuck Beatty, whom I had known for years. Chuck Beatty is a part of our community, and he's been on several posts and programs. I contacted him, and he told me about former Sea Org members, including one particular guy who had been at the Int base and who had posted negative things online, and that they had received no backlash. This would have been sometime in 2004. Then in 2005, Chuck connected me with Richard Levy of the Washington Post, who was doing a story about the CST facility with the vaults in New Mexico. Levy interviewed me for that and then quoted me in the piece he wrote. Then I was interviewed by Anderson Cooper for his 360 show on CNN. I don't remember the sequence or the timing, but I then appeared on Anderson Cooper's show again, on Nightline, on Dateline NBC, two different German documentaries, and a French documentary. Bruce tells us that although he had been emboldened to speak about the abuses he had seen, he never intended to break the confidence of the Scientologists he had audited, which are all called pre-clears or PCs in Scientology, and he never has, but also was clearly alarmed that Bruce might dish about what his auditing subjects had said, and they were planned to use against him. We will put together the full list of Hines PCs and select the best ones from that list. Even if they have not been harmed, they could sue to prevent their feared disclosure, although a suit by someone already harmed is stronger, the 2006 document says. The document discusses having someone contact Bruce relatives, but the biggest focus on having attorney Gary Soder getting Hines into an amenable frame of mind before filing a lawsuit. Soder recommends that we send Hines a cease and desist letter to set up the suit. The reason that is important, in addition to getting him to worry about litigation, is that one of the elements needed for an injunction is the likelihood of continued harm in the future. Therefore, if you can show either a negative response to a cease and desist letter or a refusal to response, this gives us a stronger showing of future harm, as opposed to saying that we think he will do it again because he has done it in the past. Gary says this is an important point for some judges. What's interesting here is the idea that Scientology knows that a cease and desist letter is just bait for a later trap. They're expecting that Bruce would ignore the letter, which they would then use to their advantage in court, or even better, that Hines might mouth off about it online. If Hines defiantly mouths off on the message board, we can attach those postings as powerful evidence of intent to continue breaching the agreement. Moxon drafted a letter which is attached. Drescher agreed that this is a good idea. I think this should be done to give us a stronger argument for the injunction. The document then lays out the planned steps to shut up both Bruce Hines and Karen Presley. 1. Invest actions to begin sending the appropriate messages, etc. 2. Cease and desist letter to Presley. 3. Concurrently, cease and desist letter to Hines. 4. Suit filed against Hines. 5. Make sure Presley hears of Hines' suit, and she will now have to think about she's next. The document indicates that Moxon had already drafted an application for a temporary restraining order, and that the plan was to go for expedited discovery, which will include at minimum a document request to Hines for all communication he has had with the media, all emails with anyone where he disclosed information about his employment with CSI, etc. Meanwhile, the church would also file a motion for subpoena of Bruce's good friend, Mick Wenlock, in Colorado, who ran the XSO message board. This subpoena will ask for all messages to or from Hines, from anyone who has communicated with him, etc. This will have a devastating effect on the message board. The document is signed M.L. Neal. The M.L. is the usual, much love, sign-off of the Sea Org. As for Neal, Mike Rinder suggests that it was probably his OSA colleague, Neil Riley. Attached to it is the cease and desist letter that Moxon had drafted for Gary Soder to sign and send out. We thought you might be interested in seeing the whole thing. Dear Mr. Hines, I represent the Church of Scientology International. As you know, over the past month, print media sources have published statements attributed to you respecting the Scientology religion, its members or its staff, and its properties. You have also appeared on television shows, making comments and providing information on these same subjects. The public statements made by you unambiguously violate the express terms of the agreement and general release you signed in July of 2001. Just a minute, we're going to look at that release. You have indicated your awareness that the agreement constituted a binding legal contract and that you would be liable for damages for breaches of that contract. You have further indicated in that contract that you would be liable for the payment of attorney fees expended to enforce the terms of the contract. You have also revealed confidential personal information concerning church staff and parishioners, which you were sworn to protect by your oath, and are required to protect by California law and the law of every other state in the Union. Former ministers simply may not reveal personal, technical information concerning parishioners they have counseled or information they have acquired in a supervisory role as a case supervisor or other technical staff member. In short, you have flagrantly and knowingly breached the contract you entered with the church, and you have flagrantly violated the rights of the church staff and parishioners. This letter is a demand that you cease and desist from such tortious acts, and to provide some proof in writing that you have done so and promise in the future to abide by your contractual and fiduciary obligations. Absent receipt of such proof within 48 hours, the church will have no option but to seek legal recourse in a California court, ordering you to comply with the terms of the agreement and general release, ordering you to maintain parishioner confidences in violate and compensating the church for the expenses of the litigation and damages. Sincerely, Gary Sutter. I never got a cease and desist letter, Bruce tells us. I remember once getting a phone call from one of the Scientology lawyers reminding me that I had signed some agreements and should stop talking to the media. I was probably a bit naive, but I didn't take it too seriously. He also points out that the lawsuit was never filed against him. We assume that OSA plans many more actions than it actually carries out, but there's no question from this document that Bruce Hines and Karen Presley in 2005 and 2006 were surveilled closely. People they knew were contacted and legal plans were assembled. Everything sort of quieted down, Bruce remembers, after the media appearances. In 2006, when Mark Headley started posting as BFG and then Mike Rinderblue, I thought they were more worried about those people. But he knew he was being watched when he decided to speak out. They wanted to shut me up to make an example of me for the others. It's all pretty strange. What did he think about this new document that confirms what he suspected at the time? They're really paranoid. They have to follow L. Ron Hubbard's policy to make life miserable for anyone critical of them. And they go to great lengths and have a lot of resources, like these lawyers and stuff. Sutter may not have sent his letter, but it's really interesting to see that OSA had Moxon draft something for him to send out. We can't help thinking about the horrific letter that Sutter sent to the A&E network just before Leah Remini's Scientology in the Aftermath was about to have its series premiere in 2016. That first episode featured Amy Scobie and her mother, Bonnie Elliott. In it, Amy revealed that she had been raped at 14 while working at a Scientology mission by another employee who was a 35-year-old married man. Sutter tried to stop the airing of the episode by claiming that Amy had been 16 at the time, not 14. Does that really make a difference? And that she had been the sexual aggressor in the incident. Amy responded by explaining to us that her evidence that she had to have been 14 at the time, not 16, is one of the most horrific things we've seen a Scientology lawyer do, and now we can't help but wondering if OSA wrote a letter for Sutter and he simply put his signature on it. What a life being a Scientologist lawyer for the Church of Scientology. So with that, okay, as I switch documents here, let's look at the release. This is, there's several copies in here, but the one that they used is a 22-page release that they had Bruce Hines sign when he left. A little bit hard to read. I'll try and switch through it. It's basically an affidavit of Bruce Hines. Bruce Hines of Riverside County, California, being duly sworn, do hereby state. And it goes through, based on your personal gains as a Scientologist, my desires to help others. These are all the things that I joined the Sea Org because I wanted to contribute to the better survival. When I first got into Scientology, my perception improved and my fears and anxiety went away. I have also used simple Scientology technology to improve countless situations, blah, 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 all the goodies. Basically, this is what he signed when he joined. And then here's his agreement of general release, his recitals, his whereas, his termination of employment, the general release, the waiver of civil code considerations, representations and warrants, saying that he's not going to say anything as a condition. That he confirms he's not going to say anything. Remedies for breach, that if he says anything, if he breaches the contract, he'll be penalized up to $500,000. The severability amendment, the applicable laws, consent with counsel, no assignment claims, no admissions. And here we go. It was signed by Bruce Hines. It's missing the signature of Church of Scientology International. Copies of his original when he went to the RPF. This one was signed by Bruce Hines and Nick McNaughton. And as I change documents, I'm going to pause in between these documents because there's quite a few of them. This is the first letter to COB RE Bruce Hines. It's to COB and RTC WDC of OSA. So it's the 13th of January, 2006. CCCOB DIG Legal Affairs and CO CMO International. RE Bruce Hines and Karen Schless. Dear Sir, thank you for the I apologize for developing traffic because I did not answer the two comms you sent me at the same time, though of course the subject matter crossed over France M6 TV and unhandled attackers. I had attached the Peter Schless letter and data on France to my second later dispatch. I totally understand on Karen Schless, her being a born-again Christian and using his song title as well as his name. It is an instant DA of her, dead agent. She isn't so upset with her ex-husband in Scientology that she isn't willing to cash in on his name and accomplishments when it suits her. And as a born-again Christian, she has a personal crusade to destroy any other religion as the work of Satan, which is a religious debate and makes her unreliable in the extreme. Some feedback from the Atlanta Ministries Association today indicates there is already dissension about her activities. Some consider her unchristian and that it being stirred up and will be further promoted as it will make those people right when they hear about a legal action. On Hines, it was a screw up for CSI not to sign the same document when he did because it makes it look incomplete. The agreement says it can be signed in counterparts, and there is a signed counterpart from that person that was there at the time, Leslie Browning, the Assistant Secretary of CSI, who is in Legal OSA International. So this agreement is valid. The draft complaint on Hines was put together today by Drescher and is being sent out to Lieberman and Gary Soder and will then be CSW'd to be filed once the message has gotten to Hines and we have his feedback. The messages are going to go out to them. Meanwhile, the investigations are moving forward, and I'm having the same data put together on each former Scientologist who has come up as source of N Theta. Sir, I do not think my hands are tied. I have created a scene where I am in a constant phase of handling flaps, which is itself not competent for the exact reason that I have never laid out the specific steps to handle situations working back from the VFP, because I haven't put the lines there. There are a lot of people in OSA, and I have to get them to work at once. I know this is not a long-term handling. It is getting things going immediately. This is okay. ML, much love, Mike. Next document, dated January 14th, the day later. Dear Sir, thank you for your calm on this. I will get some candidates for a separate action. The most promising at this point is Jacqueline Kevinar, because she was specifically mentioned by him on the message board. With a description of some metered interviews she got. She is currently here at HGB as a trainee for Gold. We will put together the full list of Heinz PCs and select the best ones from that list. Even if they have not been harmed, they could sue to prevent their feared disclosures, although a suit by someone already harmed is stronger. On invest flanking, I got it that we need to make him amenable. I have coordinated with Invest to work out actions to flank this, including having Mary Chris contact his relatives. There is a point Gary Soder brought which relates to getting Heinz into an amenable frame of mind. Soder recommends that we send Heinz a cease and desist letter to set up the suit. The reason this is important, in addition to getting him to worry about litigation, is that one of the elements needed for an injunction is the likelihood of continued harm in the future. Therefore, if you can show either a negative response to a cease and desist letter or a refusal to response, this gives a stronger showing of future harm. Blah, blah, blah. Going to give him a short time, 48 hours. Moxon drafted a letter which is attached. Drescher agreed that this is a good idea. I think this should be done to give us a stronger argument for the injunction. There's same 5. This is the letter. I got your separate dispatch. The complaint, I will get those points handled and submitted with full CSW. Moxon has drafted the application for the TRO, along with the points and authorities, which is the Drescher for edit. Another part of the suit, which will give it additional impact, is discovery. I went over this with Moxon and Drescher. While normally discovery cannot be started until 30 days after service, we are entitled to discovery in preparation of the PI hearing. Therefore, concurrently with the complaint, we will file an ex parte application to shorten time on the motion to allow expedited discovery prior to the PI hearing. This discovery will include, at a minimum, a doc request, just what they were talking about, to mess up all the message boards. We will have all of this done. Moxon will draft these paper. This is okay. Much love, Neil. As I bring up the next, here is the data. They started putting a folder together, a dead agent folder and a data folder. Here's the summary of all of Heinz media appearances, where Heinz responded to open questions where any allegation of violence could have been made. Nothing of the sort came up. The Anderson Cooper LA Times article, January 8th, one of the ex-Scientologists on a French TV show, April 24th, Rob Farley, BBC Radio Live. So they basically put together what he had been doing. Now here's the compilation of all of the other data, his personal data, and his ruins that they put together. Sweeney's allegations. Sweeney is relying on allegations from Bruce Heinz. Sweeney claims that Heinz told him he had been struck by Mr. Miscavige. Bruce Heinz is a 53-year-old. He joined Scientology in 73, became a member of the Sea Org in 79. He left Scientology in 2003. Much of the time in the Sea Org was spent either as a religious counselor or as a clerk in one of the areas that administrated this counseling. He never held any executive positions. In 95, he was removed from the counseling lines because of his refusal to apply L. Ron Hubbard's materials precisely. This is a very serious matter for Scientology counselors, as it is crucial and critical that Scientology spiritual counseling procedures be applied exactly as L. Ron Hubbard detailed them. Hines spent the remainder of his time in the Sea Org 95 to 2003, working in construction, first in California, then in New York. In his life history, he disclosed incidents of being a peeping Tom, the most recent of which was in 1986. He also disclosed incidents of exposing himself to strange women in the 70s. Nowhere in any of his previous media appearances or in his postings on the internet has Science claimed he had been hit. He had every opportunity to do so in the interviews with CNN, MSNBC, French national television, and the LA Times, and the St. Petersburg Times. He never said anything because he is lying. After speaking with Hines, Sweeney told one of the interviewees, Leah Remini, there were allegations of personal priest penitent information being disclosed publicly, and asked her if she was concerned about it happening to her. She dismissed the notion. Hines is the one doing that. He has disclosed what he claimed was counseling information about Scientologists on television. This shows Hines' lack of moral character. His profile fits exactly the profile of an apostate, as detailed by Professor Brian Wilson, who wrote, "The apostate is generally in need of self-justification. He seeks to reconstruct his own past, to excuse his former affiliations, and to blame those who were formerly his closest associates. Not uncommonly, the apostate learns to rehearse an atrocity story, to explain how, by manipulation, trickery, coercion, or deceit, he was induced to join or to remain within an organization that he now forswears and condemns. Apostates, sensationalized by the press, have sometimes sought to make a profit from accounts of their experiences and stories sold to newspapers or produced as books, sometimes written by ghost writers." Didn't we just hear that gentleman that was talking to DOA and MD Media 18 the other day talk about, are you writing? Are you profiting? What are you doing on this? Boy, that just sounds really familiar. Here's another document that they had of data. This is old information, so I'm not doxing anybody. He was located in Denver in the property owned by another person. Bruce is driving a 2003 Saturn. It was registered to his brother after a recent referral from Chuck Beatty. A reporter interviewed Bruce Hines by phone after exchanging email. The reporter said he was from the New York Newspaper Information Services, and they spoke about recent news stories concerning Tom Cruise and the church. Aside from the various natter and disaffection, Hines suggested 3 angles for his story that he thought would be interesting to the reporter. Those were: Tom Cruise got Holmes pregnant, which is a big sin for a Catholic, and if they were in the Sea Org, that would be a big sin also, and they would be sent to the RPF. Hines then went on to describe what the RPF is and what it's like to go through, and said he spent 6 years on the RPF. Hines stated that he is in comm with the high-ranking member who blew from uplines, who was in the Sea Org for 34 years. Hines stated his 34-year veteran, probably Jeff Hawkins, told him that COB had a briefing for the upline staff that if they meet or encountered Tom Cruise, they were to address him as Sir. Hines stated that this was most unusual and that the staff uplines are of the highest caliber and rank. So it is like a high-ranking officer being told that they have to address this outside public as Sir, which Hines said was not good for the staff. Hines also talked about how COB is in charge of anything having to do with Tom Cruise and current gossip about Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes spending the holidays at her parents' home, and that is not going well, would be of interest. Hines said that COB would be involved in some way. An email from Bruce's former wife, Mary Chris Hines, was sent to members of the XSO message board a couple of days ago, which gives data on Bruce Hines being a pervert. She will send this out to Bruce's connections and family. The reporter will be getting back in touch with Hines to challenge him about the email from Mary Chris. The Colorado PI will find out where Hines is working and where he is going to school and get special collections done. So they've hired a PI to do all of this. No surprise there. This is being closely followed. And the next document we have is dated January 23rd. Dear Neil, apart from everything else, I want to see the attachments, i.e. the internet postings and anything else. Get these sent to me. There's supposed to be a complete CSW on this, giving all the data and proposed timing and why. This needs to be gotten to me, and you can then include all the attachments that are needed. Love, WDC OSA. Basically, Mike Rinder. The next document in the line of documents is the CSW update on February 12th. Dear Sir, a few weeks ago you asked me about the releases and waivers being used to enforce silence by ex-staff. At the time, I sent you a report on this and told you I would prepare a lawsuit against Bruce Hines and get him into an amenable frame of mind and then get a precedent set with the case against him. I said I would clear filing the suit with you beforehand. So there's the situation. Bruce Hines has gone to the media in violation of the waiver he signed when he left CSI. He gives information about the data that he posted the RPF, about his RPF twin Jacqueline Kevinar. We are prepared a complaint against Hines to get the court to issue a TRO. He gives a little more information. It goes through ex parte application, points and authorities in support of the application, declaration of Neil Levin, declaration of Jacqueline Kevinar, proposed order, so it has all that. The timing, we wanted to put Hines into an amenable frame of mind before filing this complaint, and this has now been done. Hines was contacted by a reporter. The message was given to Chuck Beatty regarding preparations for legal action against Hines. Beatty relayed this to Hines. Hines then posted that he was going back to college and would be too busy to be on the internet. He has not posted anything now for 2 weeks. Hines has stated to a friend that he has his life other than being involved in attacks on Scientology, and that he is satisfied with what he is doing, i.e. going to school to get his degree and getting work as an electrical engineer. Filing suit will directly threaten these plans, making it likely he will cave and want to get out right away. Based on the above, I'm proposing that we forward now with the filing of the complaint and the application for a TRO. Soder is ready to proceed. The timing is as follows. File the complaint. 2. Once assigned to a judge, find out when this judge has his next available date for an ex parte hearing. 3. The complaint will be served on Hines. 4. Once the complaint is served, Soder calls Hines, giving notice. Soder will give Hines the phone number of the court so he can participate by phone. 5. Soder will be briefed that if there is any sign of Hines caving, that he will be ready to offer Hines a stipulation to be filed with the court, entering a permanent injunction upholding the terms of the agreement, at which point we will dismiss the suit. 6. Suitor will fax ex parte papers to Hines. 7. Have the TRO hearing and get the TRO. Soder will position it to the judge in such a way that the judge will encourage Hines to enter into a stipulation to be done with the whole cycle. Get the judge to ask Hines, do you really intend to continue these actions? The purpose of the suit is to get a restraining order against Hines and as a head on the pike. Use it to shut down any ex-CO attackers. That concern will be reinforced on invest lines. The Hines complaint is set up with the Does, and the rumor going around that there could be others added in will back off anyone contemplating similar activities. Solution: we shall file the complaint against Bruce Hines in LA Superior Court with Gary Soder litigating it, get an intermediate TRO, and then injunction and force Hines to cave in a stipulate. So we can use the court order as a precedent to restrain other attackers from violating their agreements. This is okay. Much love, Mike. Here we're showing precedence and pattern. In following all of the documents that support this and that were also part of this Tony Ortega thing, we're looking at interference, we're looking at obstruction of justice, we're looking at possibly safe pointing a judicial system. It's amazing. So I thought that would be really interesting. Thanks for joining me tonight. We'll go on to the next one.